Welcome to the 3 over 2. I'm Joe Fortunato, and as always, I'm joined here with Chris Grieve.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about this week. There's been amazing NBA games here, and there's just so much to talk about with them. So we're going to start off with a quick weekly recap where we're going to go through the things that highlighted to us the most in these games. So I kind of wanted to start it off with the Lakers game last night. I watched the whole thing. This is probably the game of the year I watched. So no LeBron in this game, but AD and Carmelo Anthony came to play, and it actually ended up with the Thunder upsetting the Lakers. What'd you think of that game? I just thought Melo was amazing and Shea Gilgeous was amazing too.
Yeah, that was a crazy game, and it was crazy seeing Shea do it again against the Lakers. A couple weeks ago, he came back from down, what was it, 23, 24,
Yeah,
something in that
around
range against the Lakers again, where Shea just turns it on in the second half, is amazing down in the clutch, and proves that he is a star in this league.
there was another big comeback in this game too. I think there was a 15-point comeback early
19.
on. Oh, 19-point
Yeah.
comeback. Yeah. So Shea's just can carry a team at any point. One thing I noticed with the Thunder that I love seeing out of a young team is their ball movement. One of the best in the league. Pretty much every player on their team is selfless. You see it with Josh Giddey and Shea Gilgeous. They're always just looking for better looks for their teammates, and the ball movement yesterday was the key for their win.
Yeah, they just play well together. And I know it's the Thunder, and I'm gonna relate them to the Thunder of a couple of years ago, but it's just like, yeah, their talent on paper doesn't look impressive, but the way they play is impressive. Like I feel like they could go out and beat any team any given night.
I 100% agree with you there. They could beat any team when they play like this, and we saw it yesterday beating one of the better teams in the league in the Lakers. Granted, they didn't have LeBron, but Carmelo Anthony had one of his best games, and that's another point I wanted to talk about in this game. Carmelo Anthony, a couple weeks ago, I said I don't know if he can be the catch and shoot guy for the Lakers. He's looks like one of the best catch and shoot 3-point shooters in the NBA this year. He's really impressed me shooting the ball from three and creating his own shots, difficult shots he's making. Carmelo Anthony has been exceeding expectations on this Lakers team.
Yeah, I agree. He's been balling, and he's just been shooting the ball well. He's been realizing his role as a spot up guy, and it's been interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you have any other games this week that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about a player in specific, and
Yeah.
that being Cade Cunningham. He's been trying to find his stroke. He's played his first 3 games, and during his first 3 games, he's shot, I believe it's like 15%, 16%, something in that ballpark. And that's scary for a first overall pick. I saw a statistic saying players drafted when playing their first 3 games in the NBA, no player shot that low
Ever?
ever.
Wow. Yeah, one thing I noticed with Cade, he seems a little lost out on the court because I watched the Sixers games, both well, the Sixers game the other night when they went to Detroit and played them. Cade didn't play in the first Sixers Detroit game, but while watching that, it seemed like Cade seemed a little lost on the court. He was kind of didn't know what he was doing, and I kind of blame that on coaching so far. I don't think he's been necessarily in the best situation. When he has the ball in his hands, it seems like every time he's waiting till the shot clock ends and chucking up a bad shot. That's the biggest thing I noticed.
Yeah,
He's
and
forcing
he
things.
made that Hail Mary 3 from the logo. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw
And
that
then, of
one.
course, it goes all over Bleacher Report and House of Highlights. Like,
People thought he
oh,
did great if you just see
yeah,
that,
yeah,
but
you
he
just
really
see that.
didn't.
You just see the one play and you're just imagining Cade, pulling up from the logo. But it was another one of those shot clock things where the clock was winding down and then he, just threw up a prayer and it went in.
Yeah, that was an amazing shot by Cade, and I think he's shown flashes like that. He's had moments where he did, and yesterday he had a double double. He's been able to get rebounds, and he's going to probably put up good stats other than his shooting. If he can improve his shooting, I think that he has a bright future.
Yeah, it was just a little scary seeing how he started. He missed his first like 22 NBA threes.
Wow, I didn't realize there's that many
Yeah,
also.
pretty bad.
I'm not entirely concerned though. I'm gonna give him time. I think he figures it out because I saw in college how he can be a 3-point shooter and can score anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not overreacting. I think that he will figure it out. I think Cade's gonna have a great stint here within the next couple of weeks. But other players, while we're on the topic of struggling, I kind of want to bring up Dame and Tatum kind of together
Yeah,
because they're two players that me and you imagined would find their stroke by now, find their legs, be comfortable again. And it just seems like they're off and they're not performing to the Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum that we know.
I think part of this, they kind of both go in this category, but both of them had such big expectations for this year,
Yeah.
and it's really hurting them that they're falling short of it. And I think it might be a mental thing with the high expectations, and now they're struggling with it. But yeah, neither are shooting good. I think I'll start with the Celtics. One of their problems is they're so centric around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they have nobody to really facilitate them the ball.
Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder's been okay, but they don't have a third option. They don't have someone to facilitate them the ball, and teams can really zone in on Tatum. So that's the issue I see there. I don't know what Dame is. I think Dame's just in a really, really bad slump.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the thing about both of those guys slumping right now is their teams are being affected by it in a
Yeah, they
part of the
are.
season where you got to start hot. I mean, they're two teams that are in the kind of the same boat. I think Boston's slightly better than Portland, but I think that they're both going to be come playoff time trying to win every single game because of this shallow start that they're having. I think they, in Boston in particular, need to find a third option. And that doesn't mean go out and trade for one. I think they just got to make someone their third option, as in like Marcus Smart. Like, okay, we're gonna have Marcus shoot 5 more shots a game or whatever it may be. They got to find that guy who's gonna step up and be that third option for JT and Jaylen Brown.
It's hard to. I don't know if Marcus Smart can do it.
I don't think he can
Really,
do it. I don't think he can do it, but I think someone's got to try and fill that role and just see what they can do. And then maybe come trade deadline, they go out there and get someone like Harrison Barnes, like we were talking about, going to get Buddy Hield, someone like that. And I know that's two Kings players, but maybe they try and see what they have with this group and try and find a third and fourth option. If not, go out and get one.
yeah, they definitely need to find something else because what they're doing right now isn't working, and they need to shake things up. And I don't know how they can.
Yeah, and I do think JT and Dame are gonna find their stroke, but at the end of the day, they both need to pick it up because their teams are struggling, and it can't be 30 games into the season where Jason Tatum finds it. He's got to find it within the next couple of games.
Yeah, so you want to move on to instead players that have been playing good now? Because I have a bunch of players that, unlike Tatum and Dame, have been going off this year, and definitely we need to talk about. So I'll bring up some Kevin Durant stats that are just crazy. I think Kevin Durant's my MVP so far. Some people might want to argue Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler had a tough loss yesterday where the Heat just looked bad. So I'm going with Kevin Durant as my MVP so far. Listen to these stats about Kevin Durant. So he's averaging 28.3 points a game. That's the most since Oklahoma City. Then he's averaging 8.6 rebounds, career high, 5.3 assists, and he's shooting nearly 60% from the field. He's shooting 59.2% right now. Kevin Durant has gotten better, and people still aren't acknowledging it because the Nets haven't been playing great, but Kevin Durant's having one of his best years ever, and I think he deserves an MVP if he keeps this up.
Yeah, I don't think that's far from who I have as MVP either. I think Kevin Durant is he might be the best option to pick as MVP right now. His team's being pretty successful given the circumstances of Kyrie Irving and whatnot. And yeah, KD's just lighting it up and he's having career years. And he's been having career years in Brooklyn is what I meant. But people are just imagining now he's on a downslope because he went to a different team. But at the end of the day, this is prime KD that we're seeing.
Yeah, it is. This is, and his prime has been so long now.
It's
It's
ridiculous.
one of the longest primes.
It's really like LeBron, like in a way of longevity with their prime. And LeBron didn't have to suffer a torn Achilles like KD did, but KD's showing that he worked hard training to get back, and he's maybe better than ever.
One of the strongest takes I ever had, but KD would be such a big superstar if he never played in LeBron's era. He would have been the face of the NBA for years, but he's always kind of been a little bit in LeBron's shadow. And KD, we got to give him credit while it's due. He's having an amazing year.
Yeah, like say KD was drafted today, like, 2021 draft
He'd
class,
get so much more credit for his whole
he would
career.
probably go down as being one of the GOATs, but I mean, he's still going to go down as being maybe a top 10 player ever when he's said and done,
I
especially if he
think he
adds,
should be too.
yeah, especially if he adds another championship to his resume. But yeah, KD, as of right now, probably the best player in the league.
And if KD was, he could have won championships with the Thunder too if LeBron wasn't there. Could
Yeah,
have easily have won at least one there when they played them in the finals.
yeah,
So I just
exactly.
think that the whole thing with having LeBron in front of him kind of hurting KD's legacy in the minds of many just normal NBA fans. But I don't know. I see through it. I think Kevin Durant's one of the best players of all time.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that's a good pick. And moving on here, I kind of wanted to go over the Sixers as well. What do you
Yeah,
think about the Sixers? Do you think they're a for real team? Like, do you think, I believe they're 7-2 at this point. They are 7-2. Do you think they're for real, or is this just kind of a weak starting point to the year?
I think that they are for real because every single role player on the Sixers has gotten so much better this year. We see it out of Tyrese Maxey. He looks like he can be a starting point guard in the NBA and some.
I agree.
He's been really good, a great scoring option, can showing he can be a playmaker too. He's a fun player to watch. Matisse Thybulle, I think, has gotten even better defensively. Furkan Korkmaz gotten significantly better, shooting great. He's sometimes gets into these stretches where he is really good but isn't consistent. But so far this year, he's been consistent with it. I love the pickup of Georges Niang. He seems like one of
Mm-hmm.
the best corner three guys in the league, and he can also get rebounds and do other things
Yeah,
for
he's been
us.
playmaking too.
Yeah, I love him.
I mean, if we flash back a little bit to the first episode here, we discussed how we weren't thrilled with the Sixers pickups this offseason, but I've enjoyed Niang and Drummond, honestly.
Yeah, they both have played really good. One name I forgot to mention while listing off all these Sixers role players, Seth Curry, best year of his career so far.
He's been balling. He's been really
really
stepping up.
balling. Yeah, Steph Curry's stepped up. Sorry, Seth Curry's stepped up and been that third option here. He's ran away with it. He's the third option now. He can score pretty much 20 points every game when the Sixers need it too. And I love what I see from Seth Curry. I think he's been amazing.
Am I wrong for saying that this is the most fun I've had watching the Sixers recently?
No, you're not wrong. I
Like
kind of like it.
this team's been fun to
They
watch.
were good last year, but for some reason I like this team more.
I do too, and I don't think it's because they're without Ben, but I just like how all these players have stepped up and embraced who they are as a player, and it's been coming together well. They've been gelling well, and they're sitting at the top of the East right now.
And credit to Doc Rivers. I didn't
Yeah,
really like Doc Rivers, especially after last year's playoff collapse, but Doc's done a good job of getting all these guys on the team to play hard, know their role, and every player's done what they're supposed to do so far this year.
yeah. I'm not too big on Doc Rivers still. I gotta see it done in the playoffs,
For
but
sure.
yeah, he's done well with the group that we have. I mean, on paper, we're not the most talented roster in the East alone, but we're sitting at the top right now, and everyone's playing to their highest level.
Yeah, and one of our losses in this was to the Nets, who are regarded as the best roster. So
Yeah.
we've beat the teams we needed to with the Sixers. They've beat every team they needed to.
And that's what it's about. I mean, come playoff time, come that final stretch of the year, you just got to beat who you're supposed to beat at this point. The Sixers
Definitely.
are guaranteed playoff spot at this point. They're gonna finish in that realm, assuming injuries aren't a factor, but when they beat the teams they're supposed to, this team's dangerous.
I agree, and I want to see them this year finally get to the conference finals. That's my goal for them. So, thinking of other players that have been going off, I think we got to talk about Miles Bridges because
He's
we've
a
talked about him every episode.
he's a weekly appearance,
Yeah, making his weekly appearance
and
for
I love
just
it.
he's just hasn't gotten worse. We thought he would come back down to earth. He's still going off. He's still getting you 30 almost every night.
Yeah, his last game he had 32.
Yeah, Miles Bridges just fits so good with the Hornets. Has been an insane scorer so far. I love what I'm seeing out of Miles Bridges, and I think right now still an all-star, and I think he'll keep it up and continue to be playing at this level, and will finally make the all-star game.
Yeah, we talked about last week that 4-year, $60 million deal that he was offered, and I'm seeing triple digits for his next extension. I mean, if he's balling at this level, there's no reason to not give him over 100 million.
He's so valuable to the Hornets. I think they have to.
He really is,
Or if
and
they don't, someone else will.
the entertainment factor alone of
Yeah.
Miles Bridges dunking everything.
He's LaMelo's guy, too. Him and LaMelo play so good together. The Hornets have to bring him back. They just have to.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, it was nice wrapping up the week, recapping everything. Doing this podcast on a Friday is kind of nice because we get to see the whole week go by. So it's good to get a good amount of game slots, you know what I mean? Like getting all that in there. And after recapping that, we kind of had on our schedule to just go over rookies. We saw a lot of entertaining rookies this week. We've seen the rookies be very entertaining throughout the season. But now we want to talk about where we see the top 5 rookies in this draft class when their career's said and done. So flash forward 15 to 20 years in the future. Who do we think is the top 5? So I'll let you introduce your honorable mentions first because we did want to add some of those because this was a hard top 5 to make.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to start from the bottom up here, and this is how we're projecting their careers. This is a complete guess right now. We've only seen them play for a couple weeks.
It's a total overreaction, and that's the fun part about it.
Yeah, but maybe we'll hit on some of these, and our statements will be correct. So I'm going to kind of give what I think their career will look like, too, as we're going through this. So honorable mentions, I gave a bunch. First one I have is Franz Wagner. I think at the very least, he's a starter in the NBA for 7 to 8 years. He's proved to me that he's better than his brother, first of all, which I compared him to during the draft. I was just like, why are the Magic taking him? He's at best his brother. He's a lot better than his brother. He's a lot better than Mo Wagner, and I think he can be a solid starting power forward center in the NBA for at least 10 years. He seems like a player that will have longevity.
Yeah.
So he was my first honorable mention. Then I also had Davion Mitchell, which I think at the very least will be a very good defender for maybe 7-8 years in the NBA. He's already clamped up so many of the league's best stars. I don't think he'll ever be an all-star player, but he'll be a solid player for years.
Off night.
Yep, that's his nickname.
Best nickname in the league.
Then I also had honorable mentions. I had Bones Highland. I think he's going to be potentially a 6-man at some point in his career. I don't know if he's got the all-star ceiling, but he'll be a really good player for a bunch of years. And then last I had Jalen Suggs.
Nice.
Kind of weird to have Suggs in the honorable mention because people would think he'd be in the top 5. He's underperformed for me, but I think Jalen Suggs, when it's all said and done, will have a solid NBA career, just not in the top 5.
Yeah, those are good honorable mentions, and I pretty much have the same exact ones. I highlighted Davion Mitchell because I almost put Davion Mitchell at my 5 spot, believe it or not. I do think Davion's going to have a pretty long career of just clamping people up, doing what he's paid to do, and I can see him developing an offensive repertoire where he could go in there and put up 15, 16 points a night, and that's all he's going to be needed to do. He's a very fun defender to watch, and he's my main honorable mention, but I also put Bones Highland in there because I honestly could see Bones Highland stepping into the starting lineup for Denver within the next 2 years.
That's very possible, especially with just athleticism and fun. He just got this fun scoring first game to him that I love to see, and I think they could use that in the Nuggets starting lineup.
And there's a gut feeling that I have that he's going to get dealt at the trade deadline if he isn't in their role.
That's fair because he has a lot of potential, and we saw that last year. They traded R.J. Hampton at the trade deadline, who was a young rookie with a lot of potential. I could see the Nuggets doing it again.
I could see the same thing happen to Bol as well, and kind of packaging him and Bones together to go get a player that's already established. So it's pretty interesting.
That'd be a good trade. That's definitely a good option. So who do you got at number 5 on the list?
So again, I need to emphasize how hard this was to make. This list is a prediction for 15, 20 years in the future. We don't know what's going to happen. We're just hoping we hit. But my number 5, I have Scotty Barnes. And I felt like that was a little low for him.
Yeah, I have him higher.
Yeah, but I like Scotty Barnes a lot. I need to see him develop that jump shot. He's a lot of rim running right now, And I think once teams figure him out a little bit, it's going to be a little harder for him. Like I can imagine him having a similar sophomore slump as Tyler Hero did, where he's coming in making an impact on a good team and then taking a little step back. But I could imagine Scotty Barnes as a multiple time All Star. I think he's very good, and I think he's going to keep Toronto as a decent team for the time being.
One thing I wanted to bring up here when you say the name Scotty Barnes is Pascal Siakam hasn't been playing this year, so you were saying Scotty Barnes attacks the rim a lot right now, and that's his main game. Well, that's also Pascal Siakam's main game.
Right.
So when Siakam comes back, I do expect Barnes to kind of fall off a little bit. He's right now averaging in the 18 points per game area, something in the 18. He's going to go down, I think, to 15, something like that when Siakam comes back. So I think that will affect him. And yes, he's been the best rookie so far, but we are predicting this for the future in their whole career. That's fair. I like your points, and I like seeing him at 5 there. For me, I had Josh Giddey at 5.
Nice.
I like Giddey right now. He's averaging 10, 5, and 5. He seems like a guy who could average almost 10 assists a game. I think he would if he didn't have Shea out there too, taking a lot of the ball and assists. Giddey just seems like an elite playmaker. He's a smart basketball player that kind of very well rounded. He's a very well rounded player, and I think he'll be a starter for a lot of years. I think he even has all star potential.
Yeah, I like Josh Giddey a lot, and that's kind of jumping right into my 4 slot. That's where I have Josh Giddey. I have Josh Giddey ahead of Scotty Barnes just because I think he's more complete at this point. I think he's just made for the NBA the way he plays. He's flashy, he's fun, he's versatile to play, you know, any playmaking role that he needs to, and he can score. And I know the 10 isn't that high right now, but he's doing other things, and he's on a team that where he's going to get immediate pressure as a rookie. So I want to see Josh Giddey develop. I think he will, and I do see him being a multiple-time All-Star, similar to Barnes. And I could kind of flip-flop them at the 4 and 5. It was kind of hard for me to pick. I just went with Giddey because he's fun to watch.
Yeah, that's a good pick there. I like that. So you said your 4. I'll give you my 4. And right now I have Evan Mobley at 4. I love Devin Mobley, and I feel like I'm disrespecting him putting him at 4. But the other 3 players I just think have slightly better situations right now. That helps them out there. And I don't know, it's tough. I think he's the best defender out of anyone here, except maybe Davion Mitchell. But as far as a big man defender, by far the best. He's averaging almost 2 blocks a game right now. He's been, with his 7'6" wingspan, he's going to be a great defender for years to come. And he's shown that he can do everything on the basketball court. I'm a big fan of Evan Mobley, but I think I have to put him at 4 right now.
Yeah, I like that. Interesting to say the least. But I'll jump into my 3rd because you having him at 4 is going to be kind of funny when I get further up on my list. But jumping into my 3rd, I have Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, that's a fair spot for Cade. I also went Cade at 3.
Okay, I was gonna see if we had that lined up together. Yeah, I have Cade at 3. I think Cade's gonna be awesome. I don't see that like MVP potential in Cade.
No, I don't either.
And I could be totally wrong. Like Cade could just, flip the switch next week and come next Friday. I'm like, oh man, I'm big on Cade. But this list was so hard to make because we've only had this little bit of an impression of these guys, and I can imagine them all hitting slumps, and I can imagine them all having great stints. So it's kind of hard to say, but Cade falls at 3 for me.
I I think Cade at 3. Some people might think it's a little high based off of the struggling start right now. And we were talking about Cade earlier, how we don't like how he's playing right now, but he's a super big guard. I think he can play the 1 or the 2, and I think the Pistons, they're going to have a top 3 to 5 pick this year easily because of how bad they are. So he'll get a good scorer along with him. I want to see him be a playmaker, a triple-double guy every night because I know he's one of the best rebounding guards, and I know what he can bring. I see defensively a little bit of struggles so far in the first few games, but I think he figures that out with his body. He's an athlete, and I think with the Pistons, he'll be given the keys and be able to figure out all of his flaws and fix them all and just pretty much do whatever he wants there. So I think he'll have a good career, be a few-time All-Star. I agree. Not MVP potential, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big guard. and that's always intriguing, having a point guard who's 6'7", 6'8". But it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. He's got to get that jump shot going, and I think he will eventually. But at least he has the confidence to be shooting, which is good to see.
Yeah, it's better than not shooting it. We know a lot about that with our guards.
We do.
So, yeah, that is good. Number two, I'm very interested where you go with this. I'm going Scotty Barnes too for me. And part of me, I think I might be overreacting to the great start, and I probably am here, but Scotty Barnes has looked amazing so far. I can't not say he's the number two, and I love the situation in Toronto. I like how Toronto can build around him for the future. I think Toronto is a great city to win in. They always have a good culture, and their players always overperform there. So I think Scotty Barnes is going to be a multiple time All Star. He could be one of those guys that is an All Star like 6 times in Toronto, and maybe they're never the best team in the NBA, but he'll always be solid there. And I think if they build around him, I just love his situation in Toronto right now. That I think he could be a very good player for a while there.
Yeah, this is interesting because now I'm kind of curious about your number one, only because we did not mention Chris Duarte.
Oh yeah, I didn't have him
I
there.
had him in my honorable mentions, but I didn't bring him up. He's been balling, so I do want to pause this for a second. He's a baller. I don't know if his career is going to be as high as these guys, but he is a baller, and I do think he'll be around the league for a long time. I just don't know where he sits as far as all-star potential, things like that. Again, this list was hard to make. He's just a very entertaining guy to have on it.
He could, for me, I could see him. I mean, he's only a couple years older than him, but being like the Cam Johnson of this draft, where
Yeah,
he's an older player selected, but you know right away he's going to be a role player and he's going to stick around the league for a while.
he's had an immediate impact.
Yeah, so, sort of similar to how Cam Johnson had an immediate impact. Just
That's a good comparison.
I kind of see him in that realm, which I don't think we're 3 years I think into Cam Johnson's career now. We don't see him as an all-star player ever,
No.
but we always see him as a really solid player and it's going to be good for a while. So that's kind of where I put Chris Durante, and that's why I don't have him on this list for
Yeah.
career wise.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good comparison. I'm glad we spoke about him a little bit because he deserves some credit.
Yeah, I should have gave him an honorable mention because if we're going off rookies just this year, he's top five
Balling.
easily,
Yeah.
probably top three.
So
Who was
you
your
had
two?
you had Scotty Barnes at your two. I had
Yeah.
Jalen Green as my two.
Okay.
So I have Jalen Green as my two because he's gonna be awesome. He's very entertaining. He's very athletic. He can shoot. He's a little streaky at this point in his career, but I think he's gonna figure it out. And I think he has MVP potential. I think he once he fully sits into the NBA game and he realizes that he can be a 20, 25 point per game scorer, I think he's gonna go crazy.
So I had Scotty Barnes at two, but Jalen Green was my one. I guess you could probably
Figure.
figure that out from listening so far. I think the only reason I had Jalen Green number one, he's the only guy on this list who I think has MVP potential. Whether he gets there or not, I don't know. But if I were to take a gamble and pick one player that I think could be the best player out of all of these and who has the highest potential, highest ceiling out of everyone, I'm going Jalen Green because he shows those flashes. He's such a fun player, probably the most athletic player on this list, you could argue.
Oh, totally.
And he has this offensive game which can be streaky, but it can also just go off at any moment, which I love about him.
It's fun to watch too.
Yeah, I think he's a very fun player to watch. I think he's pretty much reminding me of Anthony Edwards coming straight in. His immediate impact's like Anthony Edwards, and I think both Anthony Edwards and Jalen Green could take leaps and all of a sudden become MVP players if they fix their flaws in their game.
I agree. And my number one, if you haven't figured out yet, is Evan Mobley.
Yeah, so why'd you go Mobley one?
So I think it's interesting because me and you are pretty similar when we pick these kind of stuff. Like we're always in the same realm with everything. You having Mobley at four and me at one is a pretty big gap.
That is, yeah.
And I only say that because I think Evan Mobley is the exact 7 footer that you want on your team in the NBA today. He can do it all. He can shoot. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shot block. I don't want to compare him to Joel Embiid because I think Joel Embiid, obviously has the different frame than Evan Mobley. But Evan Mobley, who knows, in a couple of years can put on that mass and just be a back to basket center who can stretch the floor as well. I think his frame is the most intriguing to me in this draft, right there with Cade Cunningham. But Evan Mobley's tools that he has, I just think he's gonna be so good.
I love Evan Mobley as just the prospect he is and the potential he has. Why I didn't have him as high, and I thought you got brought up great points. I like Jalen Green's situation more. I like Scotty Barnes' situation more, and I like Cade Cunningham's situation more. I just I hope that Evan Mobley develops in Cleveland, but right at the moment, I could see him being a guy that just kind of is mad there for his whole career. Like gets to a certain point, but never gets better. If you get what I'm saying,
Yeah, no, I see that. But in my eyes, I see the MVP potential in Mobley.
it's
And
possible. Yeah,
but at the same time, I don't see that MVP potential in Cleveland. I see it in
yeah.
a different environment.
I
Or
took a lot into consideration the teams they play for in this.
yeah, that's a good point. Um, I was thinking like longevity as far as like, Evan Mobley's probably not gonna be a Cav his whole career unless the Cavs figure something out. This list is it's a shot in the dark, and
It is.
that's the fun part about it because who knows, maybe Josh Giddey turns out to be like a Mario Hazonia or just an average role player. It's going to be interesting to see where this is come 5 years, let alone 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah, it really is interesting. And one thing I noticed while making this list, there was two people we did not talk about, and this brings up a whole new point I just wanted to quickly touch on. Kaminga, not on the list, not even honorable mention for us, and Moses Moody, not on the
And
list.
there's a common denominator there.
Yeah, they play for the Warriors. The Warriors could have took a bunch of the players on this list, but they didn't. Moody and Kaminga so far have been very disappointing when they've gotten minutes. They're not going to be a part of this team. Well, they're going to be a part of the team, but they're not going to play in the playoffs for this team most likely, unless something changes. They're not really going to be in the rotation come playoff time. So that makes me wonder, do you think the Warriors should have traded those picks? Because they're a team that can win now. It's Steph Curry's prime, and they drafted two rookies who they're not really going to play and have both underperformed. Should they have maybe have tried to move this and went for another run at a championship? Because they're a weird situation right now.
It's kind of hard to say. And I want to agree with you that they maybe should have dumped the picks off. That's your take, right? You do think they should have dumped the picks?
I think they should have. Or
Okay.
I have another take in a second, but you continue.
I I want to go with your side, and I think I could, but at the same time, Moody, Kaminga, and Wiseman are all there together. I kind of consider Wiseman a rookie at this point, but only because he only played 20 something
Yeah,
games his
that's fair.
rookie year. But when these guys are gone, Steph, Clay, Dre, when they're gone, they have these next three guys that could be the next man up, and I do think that's pretty interesting. They still have Nico Mannion, whatever he turns into. They have Jordan Poole. I think they have a lot of fun young guys who can step up into being good players in the league. So I kind of like the direction they're thinking. I don't know if it's going to pan out the way they're imagining it is, because I think they're imagining all these guys stepping up and just going to be the next versions of who's in front of them, who are, Hall of Fame players. But at the same time, I do see what you're saying. Like, it's win now mode in Golden State. So why not win now?
And I think that's hard to do for to expect these players to just jump in because they might not be key players for another 3 years. I think Curry, Clay, and Dre all give it a go for at least another 3 years with the Warriors. And then by the time those players are ready to step up, are they going to be any good? Are they going to develop at all in this time? It comes down to the Warriors organization. So one thing I thought, this is a crazy mock trade that they should have done a couple years ago, but Warriors were sitting at the number 2 pick. Number 1 was the Timberwolves drafting Anthony Edwards, by far like the best player in the draft.
Yeah, he was the clear number one.
I think the Warriors should have traded up there. They had the Timberwolves pick for the next year, and they should have gave the Timberwolves back their pick and the number 2 pick and took Anthony Edwards at 1. Would have fit nice with the Warriors. I'd love to see Anthony Edwards there. And then if you're the Timberwolves, who's complaining? You get LaMelo Ball at 2, and then you have another first round pick next year. That was just a weird scenario I thought of that they should have done.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It is pretty interesting because it'd be a whole different NBA shape right now.
It would have, and the Warriors would be significantly better if they did this. And I don't think the Timberwolves would have been that much worse if they got LaMelo instead.
Yeah, they wouldn't have picked Wiseman at 2.
Yeah, they would have went LaMelo. That's what
Yeah,
I was
for
saying.
sure. That's a good point. That's pretty interesting. And then I guess the Hornets would take Wiseman. Yeah, that's a whole different what if environment, but that's a pretty cool mock trade. And if that was to happen, I think the Warriors would be that much more dominant because they can't utilize Wiseman yet.
No, they
And a
can't.
lot of that's due to injuries though.
That is, yeah. It's partially because of injuries, but it just seems like all these picks, they're not really stepping in. I wanted to see one of Kaminga or Moody be a role player on this Warriors team this year, but what I've seen so far, I don't think either of them are in the rotation come playoff time.
Yeah, I want to see what they can do. I think the Warriors are trying to get comfortable with the team right now, and they're doing really well. They're sitting at the top of the West, not number one seed, but they're sitting up there. And I think they need another person or two to step up. But the way they're running it, it's very interesting, especially when Clay comes back.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we'll keep looking at that. I think they're going to be one of the top teams this year still too, but I don't know what I feel like they have a lot of moves that they can do, and I wish if I were to be a GM of any team, I'd want to be the GM of the Warriors because I feel like you could go so many different routes, but they kind of I'm starting to think they should pick a direction.
Yeah, and I agree on that. And I'm glad you brought up seeding because when we come back from the break, we're going to go right into that. We're going to talk about the top 3 seeds that we think are going to finish top 3 in the East and the West come playoff time. Just took a quick little break there. We want to jump into seedings now. So we got a good glimpse of the top teams and who's for real, who's not so far. And we want to say our predictions for who we think are going to be in those top 3 seeds come the end of the year.
Yeah, and this is very hard so far for us, especially in the East. We'll get to the East second because I thought that was hard to decide. There's a lot of teams at the top that I could see kind of all being the 1 through 4 seeds there. So starting off with the West, I'll just how about I just say my top 3 right now and then we'll go into it after.
Go for it.
So 1 seed I have the Jazz, 2 seed I have the Warriors, 3 seed I have the Suns.
Nice. Yeah, that's very different from mine, but
Oh,
that's
good.
awesome. So I have 1 Jazz, 2 Nuggets, 3 Lakers.
Okay, interesting.
So we're pretty far off, but I don't
Yeah,
think we're far off in our top 3, but I don't think we're far off as far as where these teams are going to fall come playoff time.
yeah, I agree with that. So I think we both agree Jazz are probably the best team in the West right now.
Yeah.
And they're the best for the regular season in the West. I'm not saying they're going to win the West and win the NBA championship, but they're a team they know how to win in the regular season, especially just Gobert's a regular season player.
Yeah.
They're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. I think they're 7-1 right now. They're going to run away with the 1 seed, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if they learned anything from last year's playoffs and if they're contenders in the West. And I think it's fair to say they are contenders, but there are other teams that have these players that get past the Jazz every year. So it's gonna be interesting. Um, I had the Nuggets at 2 because they're 4-4 right now. They're sitting at 7th, but they're they just won the West last year. They're very interesting as far as heating up. I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to heat up. I think Jokic is going to do Jokic things, and they're just going to be a good team all around. And I hope Jamal Murray does come back. It is questionable if he does for the year, but I think they'll figure it out. I think their role players are going to step up, and I think they're going to be a good team come playoff time. And I have them at number 2.
So with the Nuggets, I haven't seen that much improvement from Michael Porter. He's kind of struggled this year. That's one concern for me. And I think just without Jamal Murray out there, with Michael Porter, who hasn't picked up the slack like he should have, and probably not playing like he should have got paid right now, I'm a little concerned about the Nuggets. I don't think they'll have as good of a regular season because I think they're going to be trying to figure it out, trying to find out more second options and stuff other than Jokic. And I see them as probably at least a 4 to 5 seed.
Okay, I was gonna ask you where their floor was in your opinion.
Their floor is around the 4 to 5 seed.
Yeah, I
But
think all the teams that we listed, their floor is the 4 to 5 seed.
I
I don't
agree.
think we're too far off in that sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. The two teams you had that I didn't have, I think are my 4 and 5.
Exactly, and the two teams you don't have are my 4 and 5.
So we kind of flipped our 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 here. So yeah, my two was the Warriors. The way I see it with the Warriors, they're playing great without Clay right now. Then probably around midseason they're gonna add Clay back, and Clay's a guy you could just fit in. It's not gonna take him a while to get back here, I don't think.
Yeah,
He doesn't need the ball in his hands. He's the catch and shoot guy, and he's the best to ever do it. I think he's someone that can just easily fit into this lineup. And Curry's played with him for so long. Draymond's played with him for so long. It's not going to be long. It's not going to be hard to reincorporate Clay in. And I think if the Warriors keep up their pace right now, keep winning games like they are, they're probably going to be around the 3 to 4 seed come mid-season, and then I think they get hot once they get Clay back.
I like that, and I want to see the Warriors finish on the top of the West, especially after the year they had last year. Obviously, hit with so many injuries, but it's interesting because your point about Clay about stepping in and being good immediately. I think he could go to any team in the NBA, all 30 teams, and just have an immediately positive impact.
I agree
And
easily.
he might be one of the very few players that could do that.
Any team could use a Clay Thompson.
Any team.
He's one player that fits no matter where he goes.
Yeah, and he's a terrific defender too. I don't know if he's going to lose a step or two because of the, ACL tear and whatnot, and he might, but he's still going to be a lights out shooter. I can imagine him taking the Warriors to that next level. I had them as like my 4, if that matters, but yeah, I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to have home court advantage come playoffs.
Yeah, and just the way I see it too, I think Wiseman will be back by then and probably starting at center. I just have a feeling the Warriors are around the 4 seed, around All-Star break, and then they come out and go on. I could see them getting like a 15-game win streak, getting crazy hot, because they're a type of team that does that.
Yeah, especially when you have all those shooters that can just hit
Oh,
those
yeah.
streaks. So coming in at 3, finishing 3rd in the West, I have the LA Lakers. How do you feel about that?
So I don't know how I feel about that right now. They aren't playing like the 3 seed, but talent-wise, you think they should be up there.
Talent-wise, I'd probably have them number 1 or number 2. I think, like I mentioned first episode, I said 10-10 for the Lakers is realistic to start the year because they have a lot of these guys with big egos coming in shooting the ball. We were questioning Carmelo Anthony's role. We were questioning Russell Westbrook's role. I don't question Melo's role anymore.
He found it now.
He found it. Yeah, that's exactly it. He found it. He realized what he is for the Lakers. I think he's happy with what he is for the Lakers, but I think Russ has to realize his role, slow down a little bit, and then I think the Lakers are going to, like you said about the Warriors, I think the Lakers are going to really heat up and be, maybe like a 15-game tear.
I could see that too. I think I'm delaying that 10-10 in the first what'd you say, 20 games?
Yeah.
I want to delay that to like the first 30 games that they're 500 in.
Oh, okay, like 15-15.
I think it's more of a 15-15 because LeBron's still battling injuries right now. I don't know. I just think it'll take them a little bit longer based off what I've seen and LeBron being banged up here. So I think they're a team that once it comes playoff time, they can beat any team in the West. But I just don't see them as a regular season team winning a lot of games. I don't think they're going to compete for the 1 seed. I don't think they're a 2 seed. I think 3's their ceiling, and then I more realistically see them as the 5 seed or 4 seed.
Okay. I mean, I have 3's their ceiling as well.
Yeah,
So
that's
we're
fair.
in that same ballpark.
They definitely don't catch up to the Jazz. I'll just say
don't
that.
think
They're
so.
not going to be the 1
The
seed.
Jazz are just a well-oiled machine at this point.
Yeah, easily. So then my 3 was the Suns, as I said. So I think the Suns, they were in the finals last year. They were a great regular season team last year. I think, what were they, the 2 seed last year?
Yeah.
They were the 2 seed last year. They started off slow, but now have won 3 in a row. And I think they're a deep enough team that they're going to win regular season games. I think just the veterans they have there combined with Devin Booker and all their young players, I think they have the great mix of youth with veterans, which we've talked about, seems like every episode now, how that's so important. But I think that's really important both in the playoffs and regular season. Regular season, that will just get them a lot of wins, and I think that they'll be around the 3 seed.
Yeah, it totally is important, and they they really have that with Chris Paul, especially. We talked about how valuable people like Cam Johnson are, and Michael Bridges. So they have a lot going for them. I have them finishing around 5, and that's only because I think the Warriors are slightly better, but or have the potential to just get hot to be slightly better. I think their rosters are very similar, very comparable, and talent wise. But yeah, I have the Suns at 5, but you having them at 3 isn't far off at all. Like I said, our ceilings and floors aren't that far at all.
Yeah, and I think those will be the top 5 pretty much. I don't think any other team really sneaks into the top 3 out
Maybe
of
the
those 5
Clippers.
we named. It's possible the Clippers. We did not give the Clippers credit here.
It's
I was
or
also going to say Mavericks maybe, but
Mavericks and Grizzlies are kind of intriguing too. They're sitting at 3 and 4 right now.
well, those 3 teams, you add them up, that's the 8 that make the playoffs out in the West.
Exactly.
So you can kind of guess what we're going with as our playoffs here. I'd say probably no to the Clippers because they don't have Kawhi and it's just Paul George pretty much all regular season till the
Mhm.
end of it. They don't get Kawhi back, but they're a good team. They'll be up there, and yeah, we'll see with the rest of them. But let's move on to the East. So I'll start off by naming my top three in the East. 1, I have the Heat. 2, I have the Sixers, and 3, I have the Nets. This one was so hard for me because I think also the Bulls should be in this mix, and I think between the Bulls, Heat, Sixers, Nets, you could flip flop that any way you want through the top 4.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I have a little bit of a. I agree with those top 4. I have Heat, Bucks, Nets. I
Oh
think the
yeah,
Bucks get hot.
the Bucks I also had in here too. It was the top 5 teams that those 5 teams I think you can mix up any way you want.
And yeah, and I totally agree. Sixers would be my 4, and my 5 would be the Bulls. Um, but
Yeah,
it
definitely.
all could be mixed up any possible way. I do like the Heat being number 1. I think that if I had to choose where I think one's set in stone, I think it'd be the Heat at the number 1 spot. But other than that, I mean, it's all pretty interchangeable for me.
Yeah, I guess part of the reason why I think the Heat will be the number 1 is they're one of the deepest teams out of the 5 we listed. That they know how to win, and I think Jimmy Butler's really trying his hardest to be the best he's ever been this year and carry them. And I think with all their vets and everything, they're going to be a good regular season team. And right now, they are the best or second best behind the Sixers. I think they're what are they 7-2 or something like that.
Yeah, and they're 6-2 right now, right behind Philly. Um, but the main thing is they just brought in 2 guys who are champions. They brought in Kyle Lowry, they brought in PJ Tucker, guys that know how to win, guys that know how to turn it up in the playoffs, and it's going to be interesting. I like the Heat's odds at being the 1 seed and doing really well. Number 2, the Bucks, defending the championship. They, started the year 4-4, but I don't think that's a big problem. I think they're going to heat up and they're going to be really good and they're going to go on a tear and start winning games. I just see the Bucks picking it up. They're such a good regular season team.
Yeah, they always are, and I kind of forgot how good they've been the last 5 years in the regular season. They're always in this top 3, partially making me want to switch mine, maybe put them over the Nets or even the Sixers. I had the Sixers at 2, just because of how good they've looked in the regular season so far. I don't think that they're a championship contender, but I think they're a team that they're playing so high above expectations right now that I think they'll continue to win regular season games and give it their all every single regular season game this year. And Doc Rivers teams always do good in the regular season.
They do.
Doesn't matter if they end up doing terrible in the playoffs or getting upset. Doc teams always overperform in the regular season. So I think the Sixers are a top 3 team in some way. The Nets at number 3 I had. I don't know how to feel about that. I might switch the Bucks there, but I think just because of how good Kevin Durant's been, even if they don't have Kyrie, they're going to be a top 5 seed, and they're probably going to be the favorites to win the East without Kyrie even.
Yeah, I wanted to have the Sixers and the Bulls here, but it's so hard for me to do that knowing that Kevin Durant and James Harden play for the same team.
Yeah, it is.
It's just like you got to just give them a little faith and give them that slot. I think they're going to grab the three, and I think the Sixers and the Bulls between 4 and 5 is pretty interchangeable. I can really see them being a first round matchup, and
That'd be a great series.
it would. And just wrap it up talking about the Bulls. I love that team. I love what they're doing, and I love DeMar DeRozan being an MVP candidate this late in his career. It's pretty interesting, and like for both conferences, the top fives that we listed, I think, are gonna be the top fives, but very interchangeable.
Yeah, easily. It's kind of weird how it came to number 5 in both conferences. I think that might mean there is a lot of balance in the NBA right now.
There really
There
is.
realistically could be 10 championship contenders this year.
I haven't, I haven't recalled a season where it felt this balanced.
It's so balanced right now, and the Nets still don't have Kyrie back, so I wouldn't say they're a super team anymore. They're a really good team, but not a super team.
Yeah, they're missing that one guy, and that's a big guy for that team. And if they do get him back, yeah, I think
This,
that's the
this might
clear.
change a lot.
Yeah, this might change a whole lot.
But without Kyrie on the Nets, they're not a clear favorite. They're maybe the favorite, but they're not the clear favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think the Bulls there too. Maybe one more team name you could throw into that mix is the Knicks that we didn't mention in the East. Knicks have been playing good so far. I love the addition of Evan Fournier. He's actually fit into them really well, and so is Kemba. Kemba's been solid there. I think Knicks probably though. I would have to rank the other 5 teams ahead of them, but they're the 6th seed. They're the other team you could maybe think of throwing in there in the East.
Yeah, I agree. If there was any team that, like you said, got thrown in there, I think it would be the Knicks. And in the West, if there was any team we talked about, like the Clippers and stuff. But the East is very interesting right now, and the East is so unpredictable. Like anything can happen, and even in the West, like the teams we named, all it takes is one player to go down, and
That's
then
exactly
this
what I was gonna say.
this list just completely gets obliterated. So it's just what we're seeing so far within the first couple weeks of the season. It's been very fun to watch. Before we get out of here, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, but that's pretty much it. But yeah, mainly like Joe said, this is gonna come down to injuries. These standings, these are subject to change at any point, and I think the best part of this NBA season and what I want everyone to look forward to going through the next few weeks and throughout the rest of this season is that there's balance. It could be any team's game, and I want to see teams start making moves, start advancing themselves for the playoffs. I think this could be a wild trade deadline given that fact that there's so many teams so close together. Someone's got to separate, and we'll find out.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that's the perfect way to wrap us up. I think this season's going to be so entertaining, and every week has just been fun to watch so far. And I encourage those who haven't seen too many games yet to go watch it because this has been the best NBA year I've seen in many years.
Yeah, and I think this has potential to be one of the best NBA seasons of all time.
I agree. I appreciate everyone listening. This has been the 3 over 2.